Hello and welcome to Perpetual Parenting. This podcast is facilitated by Life Fellowship Foursquare Church in Fort Morgan, Colorado. It comes from a series of messages shared by Pastor Derek Brown in 2024. Virtually everyone is parenting someone. Your own actual children, your grown children, your grandchildren, your aging parents, your coworkers, even yourself. You know, people aren't perfect. Therefore, parents aren't perfect, and we often find ourselves catch-up parenting. It's a perpetual process. In part 7, called My Way or the Highway, life is constantly changing. Our abilities are always shifting. As we age, it's imperative that we learn to be dynamic in our interactions and our expectations of the younger generations. What was true in our lives may not be true today. The way you know of doing things may no longer be the best way. Part of parenting is knowing when to learn from the younger generations and when to get out of the way. So whether you're a new parent, a seasoned parent, or just someone who's surrounded by immature adult kids, dig in as we conclude our series, Perpetual Parenting. We are concluding our parent series today, and we're going to do it a little bit differently than maybe we've done. 2 weeks ago, we talked about this quote from Chris Burns, and I want to go back into that, and I want to look at it in a little bit more depth, and I want to do it with help, I guess. But this whole parenting series that we've been doing, it's for parents, it's about raising our children, but it's also about understanding that we're always raising somebody. We might be parenting ourselves. We might be parenting young people that we work with. We might have grown children. We might have grandchildren. We might have nieces. We might have nephews. We're leading somebody all the time, and we're providing a parental type structure for somebody all the time. It might even be your parents. Maybe your parents have gotten up in years to a place where you find yourself having to parent them to a degree. All of this kind of is the same discussion. But ultimately, this is about our actual children. 2 weeks ago, we looked at a quote from Chris Burns, and it's bugging me that you guys don't know who Chris Burns is, unless you happen to go follow him on social media. Chris Burns is let me come over here. This is off of his website. This is his biography off of his website. Chris Burns is a worship leader, revivalist, and preacher. He has traveled extensively throughout the U.S., Asia, Europe, and even the Middle East. The past 15 years with songs, worship, and the preaching and teaching of the gospel. He has released 7 worship albums to date and is the author of the book Pioneers of His Presence, which is used in schools all over the world and been translated into various different languages. He has another book now, too. I have the new book. It's cool. He's the founder of the Sound Movement, which hosts nationwide Jesus festivals, worship schools, and music intensives. The Sound Movement it started with a single event that they built up to for like 6 months. It was in the park in San Francisco, and it was the Jesus version of the Summer of Love. So it was on the 50th anniversary of the Summer of Love in San Francisco, and we all showed up, with like 500 of us, and just did worship in the park. It was super, super cool, and this guy led that, all right? Chris and his wife Danielle, along with their children, Jude, Mila, and Elizabeth, currently live, serve, and base themselves out of New Orleans, Louisiana. This guy was in San Francisco. He did the event there, and then he felt like God said, okay, it's time for you to move. And so he and his family moved, and they said, God, where do you want us to go? And kind of like during worship today, he said, go that way. They said, well, what are we going to do when we get there? He said, I don't know, I'll tell you later. Just go. And so they went, and they were in country music town. Nashville, thank you. They were in Nashville as a family just hanging out, and God said, all right, now I want you to go to New Orleans. And so he went, and that started in about 2018, I think is when that revival started, and it carried through COVID, and they put it on hiatus at the beginning of 2023. And he's doing, that guy's doing a whole bunch of other stuff. He's always reading, he's always writing, he's always learning. He spends more time alone and in the quiet than in front of people, which is surprising because he spends a lot of time in front of people. But he's a voice, Chris is a voice where when he speaks, I listen because he's a lot smarter than me. And because the miracles that God's done in his life are the kind that I want to experience. You know, the growth that he was talking about in that bar on Bourbon Street was phenomenal. I mean, they had people coming in drunk, leaving not drunk. They had people coming in high, leaving not high. They had people coming in getting healed of all kinds of different things. They had just full on ministry, and it was a lot of revivals start, and then people feel like the revival has to go 24/7 all the time. And because of that, people get burned out, and then revivals quit because we're like, well, God, you might still be moving, but we're shot, and so we're out. And what these guys did instead was they were like, all right, we're going to be here next weekend. And then they would stop for a few days, and then they would come back in a few days. And nothing changed. Nothing got quieter, nothing got smaller. It just continued to grow. And the fact that they were looking for somewhere to go, and this bar said, like, yeah, come on in, do church. And they did. It was phenomenal. I remember watching when all that was happening. Chris was actually at our church during that time, and he was telling us stories from it, and it was just a phenomenal deal. So again, when he talks, I pay attention, and most often what he's talking about is worship and worship atmosphere, and that we're his big thing right now is that we're called to carry the presence of God in worship, and we're not. And I'm not getting into that right now. It's too long. But that stuff we'll talk about probably in a few weeks. And not just from this guy. I'm not here to preach Chris Burns, okay? This is what this is. There are some people that say things, and they just say things because they sound good. There are some people that say things from a wealth of knowledge and experience, and we pay attention to those people. But everything that they say, we always run back to the Bible. We always want to run back. We always want to test the things that we hear. And more often than not, Chris is proven to be true when I test that. So again, I'm not here to preach Chris, but he's pointed out some things recently that I think we want to look at. And so this is the quote from 2 weeks ago that I want to tear apart today and compare it or test it against what the Bible says, okay? It says, fathers must be careful to impart their wisdom while not insisting on their preferences. Many have called their preferences God's way. Insistence on a style or preference is why many fathers don't pass on their churches, ministries, and legacies to the next generation. Then he copied Samuel 17:38 and 39. It says, then Saul gave David his own armor. David put it on, strapped the sword over it, and took a step or two to see what it was like, for he had never worn such things before. I can't go in these, David protested to Paul. I've not tested them. So David took them off. David couldn't wear... Did I put this on the screen, Pam? Next slide. Next slide. Oh, no, sorry, we are on that one. The bottom part of that, the bottom paragraph there. David couldn't wear the ways and methods of a man who would never slay the giants David was called to slay. Next slide. God can't use any style to move through, but he won't move through pride. Pride is evident when we insist that everyone do it like I do, or it isn't God. This is why many great moves, churches, and ministries end instead of growing in legacy, okay? And what we're looking at is, this is also why so many fathers and sons don't carry on into adulthood, their relationship, because there's a break. For me, I'm going to share a story about my mom a little bit. When I was a teenager, my mom would ask me to do something, and she expected it to be done the way that she wanted it done every time, which is fair. She's the mom. That's how that works. But I was a child that was an innovator. And I was always looking at things in ways that, this could be done easier, this could be done more efficiently, this could be done faster, whatever. And Mom and I would often get into arguments because she wanted it done her way, and I wanted it done a better way. And I'm just always looking at a better way. That's part of why I have this job, is because I'm always looking at trying to do something, trying to figure out how to do things a better way. And so Mom and I would always fight. And as I grew up, Mom recognized that I have some gifts in this area. And so she started letting me kind of expand and kind of grow out of that. But some of the biggest fights my mom and I ever had were over her way versus my way. or her way versus the way I wanted to try. And I just got way ahead of myself. So we're going to back up a hair. So coming back to the verse coming back to the quote from Chris. I want you guys to understand that we are responsible for what we choose to believe. Okay? So this guy that I know posts a thing. Pam, there should be one with highlights on it now. Next slide. That's the one. We are responsible for what we choose to believe. Acts chapter 17, verses 10 through 12 says, "That very night the believers sent Paul and Silas to Berea. When they arrived there, they went to the Jewish synagogue, and the people of Berea were more open-minded than those in Thessalonica, and they listened eagerly to Paul's message." Okay? Paul, a guy with a name, a guy with some history, a guy that has come to teach, speaks to the people of Berea. And the people of Berea have an open mind, an open heart. They say, "Go ahead, speak to us. We want to hear what you have to say." And they take in everything that Paul has to say. Then, in the next sentence, they searched the scriptures day after day to see if Paul and Silas were teaching the truth. As a result, many Jews believed, as did many of the prominent Greek women and men. Okay? So we're called to be open-minded and listen to people's ideas and things that they say and things that they believe and things that they've studied. But we're also responsible to test it and find out if it's true, because ultimately I am responsible for what I choose to believe. And in the end, well, that guy lied to me or I didn't know doesn't really count, okay? It doesn't matter if I know that killing someone is illegal. If I kill someone, I'm paying for it, right? So along with this idea, with this conversation of insisting on our own way, my way might not be the only way. It might not be the best way. It might not even be the right way. Through the act of growing up, working through adolescence, paying our dues, and becoming adults, and sometimes parents, we tend to believe, maybe even more than our teen counterparts, that we know what's best. Okay? Oh, those teenagers are so frustrating. They think they know everything. Have you met a 40-something dude? Have you met a middle-aged man? Because they know it all. It's the biggest lie I've heard in this building. Have you seriously? We complain about teens thinking they know everything, but the reality is, as we become adults and we look at the younger generations coming up, we think that because they haven't experienced what we've experienced, they cannot know what we know. And to an extent, that's true. But to another extent, they've grown up in a completely different world with a completely different skill set. And in this new world, they may very well have a handle on things that we're incapable of getting a handle on. So we grow up, we think we know a bunch of stuff. Then our kids grow up, the young people around us come in, and we have this my way or the highway mentality. You're going to do it my way or you're going to get out. And we do this in just about every aspect of our lives. Most people, most families will have an argument over the dishwasher and how it's supposed to be loaded. It's very, very common for a mom to be like, "Why do I always have to load the dishwasher?" And then someone will come in and load the dishwasher. And then the mom will very, very aggressively get angry. "It's not loaded right." We can't need help and ask for help and then get upset when it's not done our exact way. It doesn't work. It's not healthy. Are you guys awake this morning? I realize this is a lot of data, and I know I'm talking really, really fast because I've got a lot of stuff that I want to get through, including 5 more minutes of video. But, I think this is worth it. And here's what happens, okay? When we have a my way or the highway mentality, we stifle the creativity of those younger and more inexperienced than us, limiting our ability to move forward as a team. How many stores were called so-and-so and Sons? Like John and Sons, Baxter and Sons. And then as the sons grow up and get ready to take over the business, dad requires that it be done his way. The young men can't handle it, and the store closes because they will not do it dad's way, and dad will not let them have the store if they don't run it his way. But I've learned through not so much my own years, I don't have a whole lot of those, but through watching the world around me. That's the thing that pastors do a lot. We watch people and we kind of study humanity. And, or at least I do. And one of the things that I've noticed is there's almost, you know how there's always a bigger fish? Like no matter how good you are at something, there's somebody better. I've learned that's kind of the same with practices. And if you do something one way, there's a really good chance somebody else does it or could do it a better way, or that technology is making it possible to do that a new way, a better way. And the damage done to relationships by fighting for my way is 100% not worth it. I've been at the point with my children since they were very, very small that if they had an idea and they wanted to try something, even if I thought it wasn't going to work, I would let them do it. And there are times when I'm like, that's not going to work. I'm quiet about it, but I let them do the thing. And sometimes it doesn't work. And they say, okay, Dad, it didn't work. And then I come in and I help them and I show them what I know. But embarrassingly more often, on the inside I go, that's not going to work. And I let them go and do it. And then they come back and it did work really well. And then on the inside I go, dang it. So close. I was so close. Because as a dad, as a father, as a parent, you want to be right. You want to be, you think you're the authority. And when your kids are super, super little, you are the authority on absolutely everything. But as they grow and as they learn and as they spend time in school, they learn so much stuff and they learn things that we didn't learn. And as a parent, leading your household, like as a parent, it's your job to make sure that your house is run as healthily as possible. And shutting down your children so that you can have things your way. Breaking down the family relationship so that you can have things done exactly your way damages those relationships in a way that's not valuable. It's not worth your time. Exodus chapter 17, verses 5 and 6. The Lord said to Moses, walk out in front of the people, take your staff, the one that you used when you struck the water of the Nile, and call some of the elders of Israel to join you. I will stand before you on the rock at Mount Sinai. Strike the rock, and water will come gushing out. Then the people will be able to drink. So Moses struck the rock as he was told, and water gushed out as the elders looked on. Great. Moses, stick. Water for everybody. Thank you, Jesus. Wasn't Jesus then. Thank you, Lord. Moving on. But God seldom accomplishes a task the same way twice. And so many families and so many churches are built on the rock of this is how it was done, so this is what we do. But even in the Bible, God seldom accomplishes a task the same way twice. So Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. It is painted on that wall, and it will always be painted on that wall. That's part of what Foursquare does. On the east wall of every Foursquare sanctuary, that verse is supposed to be posted. It's part of what we do because it's incredibly important that we remember that Jesus doesn't change. Humanity might change, the world around us might change, but Jesus stays the same. But one of the things that's the same about God, one of the things about Jesus that doesn't change is that he almost never does the same thing the same way twice. We talked a few years ago about how Holy Spirit is infinitely creative, and that never changes. So we jump ahead to Numbers chapter 20, verses 6 through 12. This is after Moses struck the rock, water came out, thank you, Lord, moved on. This is later. Moses and Aaron turned away from the people and went to the entrance of the tabernacle where they fell face down on the ground. Now, I think that, I don't know how to say this. I think that in the Bible, when we're reading the Old Testament and it says that Israel was mad and Israel complained and whatever, I want to say it was probably the 1% of really upset people that were just really loud, and they made the problem for everybody, because that's kind of what happens now. And I think that I think the loud minority is kind of wrecking things for everybody all the time. But Moses and Aaron turned away from the people and went to the entrance of the tabernacle, where they fell face down on the ground. Then the glorious presence of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord said to Moses, "You and Aaron must take the staff and assemble the entire community." So take the stick, bring everybody. Last time it was take the stick and the elders, but this time it's bring everybody. As the people watch, speak to the rock over there. Don't hit the rock, speak to it, and it will pour out its water. You will provide enough water from the rock to satisfy the whole community and their livestock. So Moses did as he was told. He took the staff from the place where it was kept before the Lord. Then he and Aaron summoned the people to come and gather at the rock. "Listen, you rebels," he shouted. Obviously, Moses was frustrated, a little bit angry, definitely stressed out. I mean, can you imagine leading 4 million people or whatever it was? It would stink. "Listen, you rebels," he shouted, must we bring you water from this rock?" Then Moses raised his hand and struck the rock twice with the staff, and water gushed out. So the entire community and their livestock drank their fill. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust me enough to demonstrate my holiness to the people of Israel, you will not lead them into the land that I'm giving them." A couple of things I want to point out real quick that aren't really important to our current discussion, but Moses acted in anger, and God answered the prayer anyway. Moses was instructed to speak to the rock and water would flow. Instead, he hits it out of anger and water flowed anyway. Israel was still provided for. Moses still had consequences for not following his directions. Now, God asked Moses to hit the rock to produce faith in Moses and to produce faith in Israel. Okay? The first time, God says, "Moses, hit the rock." Moses hits the rock, water flows. Israel says, "Wow, God provided. There was a miracle." Moses says, "Hey, God told me to do this thing and it worked." And at this point, Moses has been in the middle of like 40,000 miracles. You think he'd be used to it, but whatever. So Moses hits it and his faith is built. Israel's faith is built. The next time they come, God asks Moses to speak to the rock. This isn't because God couldn't do it the other way, because obviously he could, because he did. He lets water flow when it gets hit. But God asked Moses to speak to the rock to help Moses' faith grow and to help Israel's faith grow. If God does the same thing the same way every time, that's not a relationship, that's a machine. That's like going to the ATM and punching the numbers and getting the cash. That is not what our relationship with our God is. So when Moses got frustrated and sidestepped God's instructions and hit the rock instead of speaking to it, he effectively robbed those he was leading of an opportunity for growth. And as a parent, every time I rob my children of the opportunity to learn a lesson, every time I said that wrong. Every time I rob my children of an opportunity to make a mistake, I rob them of an opportunity to grow. Give me a quick second here. I want to check some things. I wrote this message 2 weeks ago. I was supposed to do it last week, and so it's not as fresh in my mind as it normally would be. I had to check on what was coming next. We do our children a great disservice when we don't allow them to make mistakes. We need to give them enough rope to trip on, but not enough to hang themselves with. When my son was 7, I got a little side table for my living room to sit next to my couch. And it came in a box. It was furniture that hadn't been put together. And we got the box and we dragged it home. And it was everything's flat inside. It's furniture you put together. Allen wrenches and screws, the whole deal. I pushed it into the living room and I said, "All right, son, call me if you need help." And I walked away. and he had to learn. And it was an opportunity for him to, I said, read the instructions, follow the instructions. That was what I told him. He could read very, very well. He was capable. I knew that he could handle it. If he can look, okay, when my son was like 8, he made a repeating semi-automatic pistol out of Legos. It had a magazine on the top. It was gravity fed, and it would fire, load, fire, load. It was insane, and he did it off the top of his head. He didn't look at instructions. He was just maybe he started with a simple thing, and then he expanded, and then he made a new thing and a new process, and he worked his way through it. My son can do anything. So when I give him a box and I say follow the instructions, he can handle that. Can he get the screws tight? Maybe not, but he did. Then a few years later, we got a matching one for Pam's side of the couch, and I said, all right, Errol, read the instructions. Call me if you need help. I let her build the other one. I knew that they could mess it up. I knew that it might not come out right. I knew that they might have problems. I knew that they were probably going to get frustrated. But I also knew that they would grow through it. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about how it's important that my way not be the thing that defines our family, right? If everything is done my way all the time, exactly, if I am a micromanaging parent, I am robbing my children of the opportunity to learn from messing up, to learn from coming up with a new way, from learning to figure stuff out. This is something that my dad often did poorly to some degree. Like one time he gave me sparks and plugs for his truck and said, here, go change the spark plugs and wires. And I had never done it before, and I had never really paid attention to it before. And he just said, do it. And then a month later, his truck wasn't running right. And so he took it to a mechanic, and the mechanic goes, oh yeah, those 2 wires are switched. I didn't know. I didn't know how to do that. I got in, and I pulled all the old stuff out, and then I put in the new stuff and completely forgot what order everything was in the process. But other times, like one day my dad came over with 2 sprinklers, and they were both broken. You know, the kind. He gave me 2 of them, and he said, see if you can make one out of this. And I said, can I break it? Because these parts are all kind of on in a way I can't get them off. Can I break parts to make this work? And Dad said, go for it. And I did. I broke it apart. I got the parts off of these plastic sprinklers, and I made it work. Dad gave me the space to make mistakes and try something new and try to learn. It's important that we adopt God's attitude in this. Because if he never does the same, if he so seldom does the same thing the same way twice, what right do I as a father have to demand my way? Especially when there could be a better way. Now that's not to say, I'm wrapping this up here, I'm almost done. That's not to say that there are things that I know that are going to make the world work right, okay? And there are going to be times where as a father, I have to say, this is the way it needs to be done, this is when it needs to be done, this is how it needs to be done, simply because the family machine needs to work. But every chance I have to let my kids grow and experience and make mistakes in the safe environment that is my home, the better they're going to be on the other end. And that's my job as a father. It's to make them be the most capable people that I can, so that when they do grow up and they do move out on their own, they can handle life the best way possible. All right. Give me just a quick second. All right, we're going to jump. We're going to jump to a thing here. Some things in the Bible that are written to a specific people group also reveal the heart of God. Okay, so in the Old Testament, we see a lot of prophecies. We see a lot of things written that were specifically for Israel, and some of those things do not apply to modern day Christians. Some of them absolutely do not apply to us. But the ones that reveal the heart of God speak to us, okay? So Isaiah chapter 43, verses 18 through 21. Definitely written to Israel, but it reveals the heart of God for humanity. But forget all that. It's nothing compared to what I'm going to do. for I am about to do something new. See, I've already begun. Do you not see it? I will make a pathway through the wilderness. I will create rivers in the dry wasteland. The wild animals in the fields will thank me, the jackals and owls too, for giving them water in the desert. Yes, I will make rivers in the dry wasteland, so my chosen people can be refreshed. I have made Israel for myself, and they will someday honor me before the whole world. That was written to Israel in exile, and God was saying, look, I am making a new way. I'm making a path for you to come home. I am making a path for you to be made right with me so that we can be together again. That's what this is ultimately about. But when we look at it, we see the heart of God, that he is creative, that he wants to do something new, that he always does something new, that he's often doing something new. And he's doing it before we have a chance to see, and then we start paying attention. And he's making paths where there aren't paths. And he's making rivers where he's making a way where there shouldn't be a way. He's making provision where there shouldn't be provision. And these are things that we see and we experience because they're part of the heart of God. That's part of what he has for us. And if God allows room for creativity and changing of ways from generation to generation, shouldn't we allow that room too? If the heart of God is to do something new, shouldn't we be more open to doing something new? God, this is kind of a hard conversation for us because we so very much like to be right. We so very much like to be correct. And God, we get jealous and we get frustrated and we have all these emotions when somebody can do something that we can do. And it's really dumb. I want to be the only guy that can do this thing. I want to be the only guy that knows how to do this thing. And the way that I do this thing is the best way. And God, we all feel that about how the towels are folded, how the dishes are done, how the car is parked is actually really important, but still, like, there's room for movement there too. God, we have we have arguments over the best way, the right way, the one way, the only way. And God, we're willing to fight tooth and nail for that. We're willing to break down relationships over that. We're willing to hurt our family over that. God, I pray that you would help us to see the world through your eyes. That you would help us to see the world through your creativity. And that we would understand that there are many ways to do many things. Insert comment about skinning cats. There's more than one way to do that, I hear. I've never tried any of them. But God, it's the emotion of the moment. We want to understand that there's infinite ways to do infinite things, and we want to live with such grace and such mercy that we allow the people around us room to grow. Be it our children, be it the young people that we work with, be it whoever that we're leading, God, we want to give them the space. God, I never want to lose an opportunity to learn something because I wasn't willing to listen to somebody else. Like, God, was it 10 years ago I clicked play on a video that said I didn't know how to tie my shoes, and I learned something because I was willing to listen to somebody. God, I want to be that gracious to the world around me that every person that I come across might have information. And so I listen to them. I don't automatically say, no, I know the right way. I don't need to hear you. I can listen to them and I can interact with them and I can possibly learn something new. But God, just like what we were talking about with Chris Burns, we don't just take what they say at face value and say, oh, they're right. That's the thing now. We test it and we try it and we find out if it's better or not. Maybe it doesn't work for me in my situation, but it works great for you in your situation. God, I want to have the grace and the wherewithal to be willing to learn. And I think, God, that's something that we all want, that we all need. The more willing we are to learn, the more willing we are to listen, the smoother this life will be. And ultimately, God, we want to be like you. And you are so patient with us, and you are so kind. And you listen to every complaint and every argument, and you listen to everything that we do. And you love us, and you care for us, and you carry us from place to place, from moment to moment, from growth to growth. God, we're honored and we're blessed to be a part of what you're doing, and I thank you that you're so patient with us, and that you've called us to be amazing, and that you've given us the ability to be amazing. We thank you. In your name, amen.